Standard 7 Science, Chapter 9 Heat. It's a very short chapter and the following topics will be covered in this chapter. Modes of heat transfer, that is conduction, convection and radiation. When we cover conduction, we will also cover good and bad conductors of heat. After that, we will cover expansion and contraction due to heat that will take place in solids, liquids and in gases. The final topic in this chapter will be related to thermos flask, also known as Dewar flask, and its functions. What is heat transfer? Heat transfers basically from a hot object to a cold object. So, transfer of heat from a hot object to cold object is called as heat transfer. There are three modes through which heat can be transferred. The first one is conduction, wherein direct contact is needed for the heat to get transferred. The second one is convection, wherein up and down cyclic movements take place for the heat to transfer. And the final one is radiation, wherein there is no direct contact. Electromagnetic waves carry the heat. First mode of heat transfer is conduction. Now conduction is a process wherein direct contact is important. It's a process in which the heat is transferred from the hot end of the object to the cold end of the object. There is only movement of heat, the particles do not move around. Conduction usually occurs in solids. No particle will leave its original position, only the transfer of heat will take place from one end to the other end. It occurs when the particles in an object will vibrate in place and collide with the neighboring particles, and they will pass the kinetic energy to them. This kinetic energy has heat trapped in it, and that is how conduction takes place. There is a simple experiment to understand the concept of conduction. The requirements for this experiment are bars of stainless steel, aluminium and copper steel. So 1 bar you will require of stainless steel, 1 bar of aluminium and 1 of copper. A candle, a burner, pins, etc. Etc. will usually just involve stands or wax to hold the pins in place. The procedure that you have to carry out is, you will take the stainless steel, copper bar and the aluminium bar, which are about 30 centimeters long and have around the same shape. Apply wax spots on them with the help of a candle and at a distance of 2 centimeters each from on all the three bars. Now on these wax spots you will place inverted pins, and when the wax cools down the pins will be held in place. Then leave some space, empty space wherein there is no wax or pin towards the end of the three bars. Bring them close together and put them under a burner. And notice for a while what happens. So what you will observe will be that the pins that are closer to the burner, the pins that have the least distance from the burner, will start melting sooner. This means that the transfer of heat will take place from the hot end of the bar to the cold end of the bar. How can you see the transfer of heat? If you notice where the tip of the flame is, there is no pin, there is no wax. A little distance further you will see that the heat will travel, which will melt the wax, the pins will fall down. If you wait for a longer period of time, you will see all the pins will fall down. Now there are two things that we will understand from this. First, transfer of heat from the hot part of the object to the cold part is called as conduction. Secondly, the medium is required. There is a medium that is required for conduction because it's a direct contact, so you need there to be something that will transfer the heat. There has to be a medium, something in between. Another thing that we will observe by using the three types of bars is that the pins on the copper bar will fall the quickest. That is because copper is the best conductor of heat after silver. First position silver, second position copper. Now it's a bit costly and difficult to get silver bars, so we'll make do with copper, aluminium and steel. Now that we know that out of aluminium, stainless steel and copper, the pins will fall out from copper first. Find out which one will be the second one. which would be considered as the next best conductor of heat. Now, an easy way to check out what are the good and bad conductors of heat is pretty simple. You can do this DIY activity at home, but do it in the presence of an adult. All you have to do is take a nice big pan with a good enough depth. Fill it with water. Fill half of the pan with water or up to 3/4 with water. You will be inserting things inside it, so don't fill it till the top, otherwise the water will spill out. Now once you have filled 3/4 of the pan with water, you have to heat it on the gas for a while till the water starts boiling. You need boiling water because you need heat to transfer. That is why you can't use cold water. Now once the water has started boiling, you will switch off the gas and wait for a while till all the boils settle down. Then keep the pan on a stand and you will insert a few items in it. Items that are made up of various materials like wood, plastic, metal, and you will check out after 5 minutes whether the heat will travel through them and the tip of the materials that you have inserted inside, the tip that is not wet, not immersed in the water, whether that will become hot or no. Through that you will come to know whether there was conduction of heat, and you will also find out whether they are good conductors or bad conductors. It's a simple experiment, but be careful and do it in the presence of an adult. The second mode of heat transfer is convection. Now what takes place in convection is basically reduction of weight and increasing in weight. So how will you reduce weight of something? In convection, remember, like conduction had solids, convection will have liquids and gases. So you will heat up a liquid or a gas, it will become lighter and it will rise up. Now once it reaches up, it is away from the heat, so it will cool down and it becomes heavier once it cools down. Now it will come back down. Then it will again, since it's down, it is closer to the fire or to the heat source. It will become lighter and warmer, it will rise up, then it will become cooler at the top and it will come down again. So it's basically a cyclic process of heat transfer. A simple way to observe convection is through the experiment that I'll mention now. What you will require for the experiment are a transparent glass beaker, potassium permanganate crystals, or you can use food coloring in the absence of potassium permanganate crystals, a burner and water. The procedure is quite simple. You will fill 3/4 of the beaker with water. We are not filling it till the top, otherwise the water will spill out. Fill 3/4 of the beaker with water. Heat the beaker slowly on the gas burner. Then drop in a few crystals of potassium permanganate and then watch the water in the beaker carefully. Now you can observe in the beaker, you will see streams of water going up and then coming back to the bottom. Now due to potassium permanganate, the magenta colored streams can easily be identified. If you don't have potassium permanganate, you can use food coloring or thin paint coloring that mixes with the water. Potassium permanganate usually is used because you can see the crystals easily going up and down and the bubbles as well. So now when the heating begins, you will notice that the water near the bottom becomes warmer. Once it becomes warmer, so the density will decrease, the molecules will expand and it will go up. Once it moves upward, the temperature at the top will not be very hot, it will be cold. So the cold water from the top will come at the bottom because it's heavier, so it will settle down. In this manner, the heat will be transferred by the means of currents, which are called as convection currents. So this process will be called as convection of heat. Always remember, convection currents will always travel in the upward direction because whatever is warm is very light, so it will rise up. Normal daily examples of convection currents that we observe are in the refrigerator, air conditioners, radiators, hot air balloons, etc. When we learnt about convection using potassium permanganate crystals in a beaker of water and heating them up, we learnt that when water is heated, it becomes less denser and it rises up, it goes up, then it cools down, becomes more denser, and then it comes down. Once it's heated up again, it becomes less denser and it rises up again. Then it cools down, becomes heavier, more denser, and it settles down. Let's learn a bit more about density, convection and conduction using another experiment. When we learn about density, commonly when liquids turn to solids, they become heavier, they become more denser. More mass is packed in the same amount of volume. But water is a bit different. Water, the liquid state, is more denser than ice, the solid state. So which means that ice is less dense as compared to water. So ice floats in water. You must have observed it commonly. If you just fill a glass of water, drop in one ice cube, you will notice that instead of sinking in the bottom, the ice cube will be floating at the top. Now in this experiment, what we will do is we will make the piece of ice a bit denser and we will observe what happens. To make it denser, we will wrap the piece of ice in a wire gauze. For this experiment, we require a test tube, water, burner, candle and a test tube holder. And of course the piece of ice and the wire gauze. The procedure for this experiment is quite simple. You can do it at home in the presence of an adult. Take some water in a test tube or in a glass beaker. Fill in 3/4 of the test tube with some water. Wrap a piece of ice in a wire gauze and drop it in the test tube. It will sink to the bottom. Now using the test tube holder, you will hold the test tube in a slanting position, as you can look at in the picture, such that the top part of the water is exposed to the heat of the burner. Now once the water starts getting heated up, it will become less denser and it will start boiling. Once the water starts boiling, you will stop heating and you will observe what happens to the piece of ice at the bottom. You will notice that the heat does not reach the bottom even though the upper part is heated, even though the upper part of the test tube is heated, even though the upper part of the water is heated. The density of water will decrease due to heating, but it will not sink. And so the process of convection will not occur in the test tube. The ice will melt very slowly in the hot water because water is a very poor conductor of heat. And because water is a very poor conductor of heat, the heat will not travel down from the top of the test tube to the bottom of the test tube. So water will not sink and the ice will melt very slowly. Now in icebergs, in cold regions and in frozen lakes, we observe density very heavily. How is this concept so easy to understand? It's because we can see that the ice is floating on the water. Simply by observing that ice, the solid state of water, floats on water, we can easily conclude that ice is less denser to water, and that is why icebergs float on water. What else you will do is you will find out what is the process of thawing, 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 how it takes place. The final mode of heat transfer is radiation. It's the most wonderful mode of heat transfer with various applications. The transfer of heat in radiation takes place with the help of electromagnetic waves. Basically, there is heat emitted by a body, and if you just stay close to the body, you don't need to touch the body, you will just feel the heat that is radiated from the body. It does not require a solid or a liquid medium. You just have to be able to absorb or receive the heat that is emitted by the body. Now, the best example, the most commonly observed example from a closer distance, if you just put your hands near a bonfire, if you must have ever put it close, During the winter season, you would receive the heat without touching the flames. The heat of the sun, which is quite far away from you, reaches you on the earth. You feel it especially during the summer season. It's basically through radiation. You do not touch the sun during the summer season. The sun does not come closer to you during the summer season. It's just the heat that is radiated from the sun that you receive to the earth. Now, a simple, very common and easy experiment to understand radiation is light a candle, hold it upright, and just use your two hands to and bring it close to the candle. The closer you bring your hands to the candle, the warmer your hands will feel. And this heat will reach you by radiation. You are not touching the flame of the candle to receive the heat, you are just reducing the distance. Another wonderful heat emitted radiation application is infrared vision. Now, infrared is basically heat emitted by hot bodies. Now, this heat that is emitted by hot bodies is visible in the infrared part of the spectrum, which human beings cannot see. The visible light for human beings is lesser. But there are a few animals which can easily, which have adapted their sight to see in the infrared region of the spectrum. They are snakes, mosquitoes, bedbugs, goldfish, frogs, etc. They hunt or they prey using infrared vision. Now, since infrared vision is basically heat, we can also call it as thermal vision. By observing how the infrared spectrum, we come to know about hot zones. Thermal camera, infrared camera is a wonder of science that was invented. Through the thermal camera or the infrared camera, we can look at the radiations that are emitted by hot bodies in our surroundings, even at night. Infrared cameras that you must have seen put up around various buildings, IR cameras, usually have a variety of colors, but since they are invisible to the naked eye, the cameras usually switch to black and white as they are quite clearer to the naked eye. So usually when you see infrared camera recordings of the night time, the cameras usually switch to the black and white versions, which are quite clear and distinct for the human eye to see. If you want, you can research more about what is the difference between infrared vision and night vision. You must have observed in several video games that there is night vision, there is infrared vision, thermal vision. Notice the difference of color schemes, notice the differences between them, and research a bit more if you are curious. Now, radiant energy can either be reflected, absorbed, or transmitted. We already know that substances transmit radiation energy and some substances absorb radiation energy. That is why usually in the summer season people wear light colored clothes and the roofs of some buildings are painted white in color. The lighter they are, the less heat they absorb, and so we feel cooler. Transmission of radiant energy means radiant energy passes through some substances like plastic, glass, paper, etc., which makes those substances good conductors of heat and really hot to touch. Also sometimes flammable. Radiant energy also gets reflected from either shiny, smooth substances or light colored surfaces. Expansion and contraction due to heat takes place in solid substances, liquid substances, and in gaseous substances. We can learn about the expansion or contraction simply by observing the activity. It's quite simple. Take a metal ring and a metal ball of a size that the metal ball passes through the metal ring. Now heat the ball and check whether it passes through the ring. Then cool it down and check whether it passes through the ring. You will come to know that when you heat the ball, it expands and becomes more widespread. So once it expands, it will occupy more space than the hole that it used to pass through the ring. So it won't be able to pass through the ring. Once you let it cool down a bit, you take away the heat away from it, it will contract and then you will see that it will easily pass through the ring. You can perform it with different solid substances and you can observe the extent to which different types of solids expand. You will notice that they are different. Expansion and contraction of gaseous substances due to heat. Like solids, even gases expand due to heat. Now what happens in gases, how to observe it, we'll do it through a simple experiment. All you have to do is fix a normal balloon on the mouth of an empty glass bottle. Now put this glass bottle in a beaker filled with hot water or in a pan filled with hot water. You will notice that the volume of the gas will keep on increasing once the bottle gets heated up. Inside the bottle, the gas will start expanding and you will observe that the balloon will blow up. And once you remove the empty glass bottle from the beaker of hot water, keep it aside, you let it cool down, the gas inside the glass bottle will start contracting. It will become cooler and you will see that the balloon will also contract. Expansion and contraction due to heat in a liquid substance. Now when a liquid is heated, the distance between the particles will increase and the volume will also increase. This is called as expansion of liquid. Basically, when you study expansion or contraction in solid, liquid or gases, how to imagine is, imagine a room and you and a particular group of people are present in that room. You plus about 10 people in a room. Now the room gets heated up. Okay, all of you are getting heated up. The kinetic energy, the thermal energy is in you. Would you like to stick closer to each other in that hot room, or would you like to expand and occupy space that is far away from each other in that room so that you can feel a bit cooler? That is basically how you will understand expansion and contraction, just to imagine. Now let's go back to expansion and contraction of liquids due to heat. The same thing as solids and gases, you will observe there will be expansion in a liquid substance. Let's notice the experiment that's given. Fill a conical flask completely with water. Again, when I say completely with water, it means 3/4. Insert the glass tube and thermometer in the two holes of the stopper and fit it to the conical flask. There is a stopper that will cover the top part of the conical tube. There will be two holes in it. One hole you will fill in the thermometer, the second one you will fill in a glass tube. Now heat the water in the heat the conical flask basically by putting it on the tripod stand and light the burner under it. Record the water level in the glass tube after every 2 degrees Celsius rise in the temperature that you will observe in the thermometer. That is why we are inserting the thermometer. Take 10 readings. Observe what happens once you stop the heating. Means take 10 readings, then stop the heating and observe what happens after that. Now draw a graph and show the change in the water level as the temperature rises. What you will observe is when the liquid is heated, the distance between its particles increase and the volume will also increase, which means you will observe the water rise up. And once the temperature falls down, the liquids will contract and you will observe the water is falling down or reducing as compared to before when it was heated. That is how you will use this experiment to explain expansion and contraction of liquids due to heat. The final topic that you will cover in this chapter is thermos flask or Dewar flask. Now we know how heating takes place, how solids, liquids and gases react to heat. Now thermos flask basically uses conduction, convection, radiation and helps you manipulate the heat. Okay, it helps you manipulate the heat. Now let's see how it was wonderfully done. Firstly, thermos flask, a basic background knowledge you should know is Sir James Dewar. He was a Scottish scientist. He made the first thermos flask in 1892. That's why thermos flask is also called as Dewar flask. We usually call it thermos only, but that's another name you should know. It's either used for keeping a substance cold or hot. Now what happens is, if you must have noticed, normally if you heat a glass of milk, the substance is hot. You pour it in a glass, it's still hot. You leave it out for a while, heat transfer takes place and the hot glass of milk becomes normal lukewarm temperature, then it becomes normal temperature and soon it starts cooling down. What the thermos flask does is, if the substance is hot and it's placed in the thermos flask, it will stay hot for a longer period of time. Now this is basically, you prevent the heat from escaping or you prevent the cold thing from escaping. So what you have to do is, you have to isolate the substance that is inside. So however it is, it will stay the same way inside only. The outer atmosphere or temperature will not affect what is inside. That is basically what Sir James Dewar did in the thermos flask, isolation. So now since it's isolation means the structure will be nice and thick. So it's a double walled flask. It consists of two glass tubes, one inside the other, and there is a gap in between them which is also sealed. The surface of both of these glass tubes is made shiny by a silver coating. We know that radiant energy reflects or gets reflected by shiny coating. So silver coating is a good one to reflect the radiant heat. Now the air between the two tubes is removed to create a vacuum. Now if air is removed and there is a vacuum, means there is no medium, so conduction and convection will not take place. There is a protective jar of metal or plastic that is outside the tubes, means there are three layers. Firstly, it's a double walled flask. Two glass tubes are put inside it, and outside the flask you have a protective jar of metal or plastic. This is used for the protection of the flask. Also, to give an added layer of protection, pieces of sponge or rubber are fixed between the outer jar and the flask. It's like a cushion. Now let's see how the thermos flask functions, how the isolation actually takes place. We have learned how it is made, now let's see how it functions, okay? When the hot substance or a cold substance is placed in the thermos flask, because this chapter is related to heat, we'll consider hot substance for the time being. The heat going out will get reflected due to the shiny surface of the inner tube, so heat is not radiated. Neither conduction or convection can take place because vacuum is there. Now remember, conduction requires a medium, solid mostly, sometimes liquid or gases, and convection also requires a medium, but because there is vacuum, there is no medium whatsoever, no solid, no liquid, no gases to transfer the heat. So because of this, the heat is not transferred to the outer cooler region and it remains inside. So the hot substance remains hot only for a long time because it cannot escape. Basically, this is isolation. Pause the video and answer the following questions. The topic of heat is quite a fascinating concept with various applications. What you will do is, you will research about a few topics. What is the difference between the building materials and functions of a solar cooker, a pressure cooker and an induction cooker? What are their heat sources is what you will find out. How long does it take to cook meals in them? You will compare the heat distribution that the food inside it receives, the utensils receive, and the cost of making of all the three types of the cooker, and then you will finally state which of the three is most convenient and economic for Indian households. So you will have to keep in mind how much production can take place, whether the materials are available or not, how costly it is going to be to make it, and if it is costly to make, when the manufacturers sell it, it will be costly, so will it be easier for Indian households to purchase it? You will justify your answer. It's a very simple and easy thing to research about it. Another thing that you will research about is what is the difference between snow and ice. Then you will find out a few things about how Eskimos stay warm in the winter regions. You will focus on the food that they eat to keep warm, the clothing that they wear to stay warm, the shelter that they make to stay warm, and why does the fire that they light in the igloos not melt the igloos? The final thing, the simplest thing that you will do is classify as good or poor conductor of heat the following materials that are mentioned. You will pause the video and you will carry out the research topics. Revision for chapter 4. Heat transfers from a hot object to a cold object. The three modes of heat transfer are conduction, which requires direct contact and a medium. It is commonly observed in solids. The second one is convection, which involves an up and down cyclic movement. It is commonly seen in liquids and gases. And the final one is radiation, which takes place with the help of electromagnetic waves through space and air. A common example of conduction is when you heat anything on the gas, even the suppose you heat water in it and you leave a spoon inside, even though the spoon is not in direct contact with the fire, the spoon will get heated because it's in a hot substance. The heat from the utensil, the heat from the water will heat up the metal spoon. Convection example you can observe in hot air balloons, you can observe it in the air conditioners, refrigerators, radiators, etc., wherein the hot air rises up and the cool air settles down, or the hot water rises up and the cool water being denser settles down. Final is radiation. The examples of radiation are the heat of the sun, the heat you feel when you during winter evenings when you stay close to a bonfire. You don't touch the bonfire, but just staying close to it, you feel the heat that is emitted by the bonfire. Solids, liquids and gases expand due to heat and come back to their original state if the heat is removed. The extent to which different solids expand is different. Now when liquids or gases are heated, the distance between the particles increase and the volume also increases. This increase in volume due to heat is called expansion. When the temperature falls, the volume reduces and contraction takes place. When a hot substance is placed in a thermos flask, the heat going out gets reflected due to the shiny surface of the inner tube, so radiation of heat does not take place. Neither does conduction or convection take place because there is a vacuum. So this is the basic recap of chapter 4. Pause the video and answer the following questions. Pause the video and answer the following questions.